Hey, everybody, welcome to Echo Base. Eric, what do we have on tap for tonight?
Well, book release has revealed George Lucas's original plans for the sequel trilogy. We have a review of the upcoming Lego holiday special. We have some other book and collectibles news, and a listener sets us straight about Boba Fett, Lou.
Wow.
As they should.
Like
maybe
a pretty full table for us tonight.
It is.
That's awesome.
And after a couple of weeks of having nothing.
I know. We've been scrounging for news for so long. Tonight's going to feel like we have just so much to talk about.
Right.
So, let's get right into it. This new book it's been released in the UK. It's coming up here mid-December for us in the US. This is going to be the Star Wars Archives, 1999 through 2005, by Taschen Publishing.
Okay.
About 600 pages. It sounds like a good-sized tabletop, coffee table book. But this looks pretty cool. It kind of worries me, though, this first topic we're discussing here, the George Lucas's plans for the trilogy.
Does it worry you?
Yeah, it does.
Yeah?
Because, now that people know that, this is what we really should have had. Let's get what we really want.
Okay. So the fallout worries you.
Exactly. Yeah.
That makes sense. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Yeah, and I think that's the funny thing, too, is anytime somebody gets something and it's not what they want, all of a sudden, any other option seems better. And I got to say, what we've heard so far about George Lucas's vision for the sequels, I'm not that impressed. Like, there are elements of it I think are good. One in particular, but I think JJ probably had a similar vision for that. But I don't know that it would have necessarily been better than what we got.
Yeah.
Well, let's talk about it. What do we have?
Well, so, I mean, the first thing here is Darth Maul returning as the big bad guy. I don't know. I mean, what do you guys think about Darth Maul coming back as a bad guy? I mean, I think they had their shot with Darth Maul and they blew it. I mean, that I've said that before. I mean, my personal take on this was, hey, this was the guy you led us to believe from the trailers that this was going to be the big bad guy, the Darth Vader equivalent, and you killed him off. And I'm like, okay. Well, that didn't seem to go anywhere.
Yeah, and did Lucas have any involvement in... I know he consulted a lot on Rebels, but I have to wonder, did he have anything to do with the final scene between Obi-Wan and Darth Maul in Rebels?
I mean, other than the fact that him and Filoni are tight, I think that would be, whether that he was directly involved or it's just, maybe his thoughts permeating into Filoni's build, if you want to call it that. Because, I mean, I'm sure they discussed his thoughts on everything relating to this because he trained him how to do Star Wars. He was his
apprentice, really.
Yeah. There'll always be two.
Master and the apprentice, and they got rid of the master, so now I guess Favreau's the new apprentice, and pretty soon he'll off Filoni, and then Tim will be the apprentice. Just the cycle will continue.
Then it'll be a lot.
A lot, which is not necessarily a bad thing. Honestly, I would have.
No,
I'd rather see Thrawn than Darth Maul. I get the idea that Darth Maul was being set up to kind of do the underworld crime syndicate thing. And I liked where they were taking that in Solo. I kind of have a hard time reconciling the Maul that we had in episode 1 with the Maul that we had through the Clone Wars, with the Maul that we were supposed to be getting as this, not just the leader of a crime syndicate, but the leader of a group of syndicates, the leader of the leaders of the syndicates, right? He doesn't seem that brilliant. He doesn't. It seems like that's a little bit above his station.
Well, I mean, unless, he did some soul searching when he was, Spider Legs man and everything else.
Maul,
you're absolutely right, though. I never had the impression he was, the sharpest tack in the box when he was in the original trilogy, the prequel trilogy. but you grow, right?
Sure.
I mean, your mind expands. You learn stuff, especially when you're laid up, like he was. Maybe he read a lot of books. Who knows? But yeah, you're right. There's been a change in his character to go from I'm just the dumb thug to what he became. Now, I mean, I guess that's a bad way to put it. I mean, dumb thug is probably too.
But he was very much an attack dog.
Because,
I mean, he was a pit fighter basically at the beginning.
Yeah, but I don't think I don't think you're going to have a person like Palpatine bring on just a pit bull with no mental capacity.
Okay, probably true.
You're going to bring on somebody who's got some wherewithal to his thought process, right?
That's a fair assumption, but we never see it.
We never saw it. Right, exactly. No, we never see it. But that's my assumption would be that he wouldn't bring on somebody just a dumb. But
thug. To be able to take over not just one crime syndicate, but all of them, plus Mandalore.
Yeah.
I don't know. It seems like a lot of wish fulfillment to me. And I'm not dissing Maul. I like the character. It just like it seems like it's stretching it further and further and further out of a wish for him to have been better than he was. And then the way we see him in Rebels, it's like he's mentally, I don't want to say he's not all there, but like he certainly does not seem to be.
He's not all there.
That? Yeah, he doesn't seem to be in a mental state to be one of the most powerful strategists in the galaxy, which is what you would have to be to run multiple crime syndicates. Like you've got to be, if you're above the Hutts, you're above the Black Sun, you're above the Kanji Club, you're above like, and on and on and on, right?
So here's my thing. My impression of him in episode 1 wasn't so severe in terms of him being a dumb thug, because he had 3 lines in the whole movie, and I thought that was fine. They definitely took him out prematurely, and maybe that was, I mean, George was still running things then, so maybe presumably that was his thing, was, hey, we're going to bring him back, and that's going to surprise the heck out of everybody. I assumed that it was his plan to bring him back in the Clone Wars, as they did, which I think does tend to cause some confusion relative to movies, because you're going to have people who aren't watching all that stuff.
Right.
So that is a little odd. And I think where Clone Wars ended up progressing for him, and then where Rebels was, that was now George was no longer in charge. So they ended up taking the story presumably in a different direction, because they knew the sequel trilogy was going in a different direction, that they weren't going to be using Maul. So I think that they could have gotten some proliferation.
So if they had, by the way, Tom in the chat room, Maul's only half the man he used to be. I love it. Oh, and by the way, hello, Spencer. Long time no see, man. How you doing? Welcome. Do you think that if they hadn't got rid of Maul in Rebels, that if they brought Maul into the sequel trilogy, do you think he would have been a compelling big bad? Like, would he... It's kind of difficult to have another Palpatine, and we thought maybe Snoke was going to have been that, and we were looking forward to learning more about Snoke, and then kind of got chopped in half a little bit, and then we literally get Palpatine again. Would Maul have been as impressive a villain as Palpatine, especially considering the rest of what was going to have basically been the arc for the sequels? And we'll get to that in just a second, but thoughts on just, does Maul hit the bar for what we want out of a trilogy-wide villain, yes or no?
I think that he can. We just can't compare him to Palpatine. He would be a different kind of villain. The little nuggets of explanation that we got from George in this interview, in this book, along with also really what we saw at the end of the Solo movie, which was obviously very, very clearly in line with this. I mean, it was certainly inspired by it, even though that's not ultimately the direction that they were taking that character. He would have been very much a different kind of villain, because I think he would have been this galactic threat that had, I mean, basically he owned the underworld.
So it really would have been more that, you think?
Yeah, and I don't he wouldn't have been, I don't think he would have been like necessarily the hardcore Sith that Palpatine was. Where, yes, obviously he has some dark side powers. He's got the lightsaber. He has all this ability to do all this kind of stuff. But I wouldn't put him at the level of mastery that Palpatine was. I think that he would have leveraged a lot more of his underworld influence to do a lot of subversive things. Because, I mean, having the underworld, it's not like having the military might of the Empire. He would have to do a lot of subversive things and like pirate kinds of things and that kind of stuff. Very, very different villain, even though he had some. It
almost would have been more akin to dealing with terrorist attacks versus an all-out traditional military war.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. Yep. Joe.
I think it could have been really brilliantly
done.
Yeah,
I can see if, dispersing.
I think it's a pretty good vision.
I can see that. Joe in the chat room said that he didn't think Maul was as strong in the Force as either Vader or Palpatine, and I think that's true. Rodrigo pointed out, totally. I mean, he was strong enough to not die after getting chopped in half, which, I mean, that's better than I could pull off. But I think you're right, though, Tim. I think if they really approached it from almost kind of a Hydra-like thing, right? You chop off one arm of the underworld and more grows back to take its place, and it's just kind of hard to kill that creature because it's so diversified.
You chop off two legs of the underworld.
So, yeah, I guess I could kind of see that. All right. So what else do we have on this, Lou? What else was part of the original plan?
Let's see here. The original storyline Lucas had thought up was that we were going to have Leia being the lead, which makes sense to me. And then, Luke being, starting the new generation of Jedi, which I think that's probably the most, widely accepted thought, I guess I'd say, amongst all fans, because that's kind of how we thought it would be in our own minds.
And that's what we had from Legends.
Yeah, exactly. Yep. That's where it was from Legends. And that's where it's a logical conclusion to the original trilogy, right? I mean, Leia was, the face of government, and Luke was the face of Jedi.
Regarding the Jedi Academy, for lack of anything else to call it, we'll go with the Legends terminology for it. Is that playing it safe, though? It's what we are familiar with. It's what we expect. Is that kind of the easy answer? Is that the low-hanging fruit?
I think it's an easy answer, but I think it's a very good answer, though. I mean, I think we would have expected to see that. And I think, people would have maybe expected this or been happier with it if we had seen Luke do some of the things that we had the, discussions about, or at least the hints about of what happened between him and Kylo and so forth, and where that went to. We know there was him training Jedi. Would have liked to see where that went. I mean, I loved the stories and Legends of how he started the Jedi Academy. I mean, that was kind of a cool trilogy, right? I mean, people that were rumored to be, Force sensitive or talented in the Force, and he had a test where he'd push on a certain part of their mind and know if they were or not. And I mean, that was a great story.
I could see that as a series, though, but as a movie trilogy, there's a lot to unpack there in a short period of time.
Yeah, obviously they would have had to condense some of that, but
oh sure.
I think also keep in mind, I mean, again, the premise of this book is a focus on the prequels. And so obviously we haven't seen the whole context of this interview and the information and how it's laid out in this book. But I think a lot of it came from George talking about what he did in episode 1, and then how that stuff, particularly Maul, was going to then end up in the sequel trilogy. So back then he had a vision for what this arc was going to be. And so I think that, well, for us to look back and say, well, gee, it's safe, it's kind of derivative of the stuff that was out there, at the time, it wasn't necessarily. I mean, that's where he was taking these characters. So,
right.
You know, I think it's totally fair for him to have done that.
Okay.
That totally works.
Now, I'll say this. I've said it before. I'll say it again. As much as I did not care that much for most of the sequel trilogy, I really liked Luke's storyline. I know I'm like one of 4 people on the planet.
I did too.
Who liked Luke's storyline, but I liked it. It made sense to me. It would make sense that he is the type of person who would take on way too much upon himself, and then when things went badly, he would just say, "You know what? I'm going to do more damage than good here. I'm going to walk away."
Yeah.
Like I can totally see that out of Luke. And I liked what they did with it. Now, the rest of the trilogy, I think a lot of it was a mess, at least in 8 and 9. But I liked the whole Luke storyline. But I get this too. Now, I like Leia being kind of the one who ends up being the chosen one and leading the government and stuff. And you could argue that that's where Abrams was kind of going with episode 9 anyway, until Carrie Fisher passed on. So...
Yeah, there's
Fisher
definitely
not
some
passed.
elements of that there.
Yeah, I don't know how that would have played out.
We would have got something close to that anyway. So I don't think that's a big departure from what Lucas's original plan was. And then we had the allegation that, no, it wasn't even a rumor. It was, I think, straight from Lucas. He said in an interview that he wanted to get back into the midichlorians in a way where he was really getting into like the microbiology of all of that. But like that the trilogy would be about that. That worried me.
Yeah, it worries me in the fact that it changes the feel of the stories, right?
It kind of retcons it.
Well, but not even just that. I mean, you know, and I don't... Let me put it this way. I don't mind if he's into something totally different with it, but it's the feel of the stories that I always liked as a kid growing up, and even as a young adult, that these were mythological based.
Right.
You know, these were, there was a supernatural element to it, a fantasy element to it. And then when you boil it down to just, yeah, this is what it is. You know, it's like, I mean, you know, it's kind of like, you know, somebody telling you how they do the magic trick, right? It doesn't have any magic anymore, right?
I think people overreacted to the midichlorians thing in episode 1. And I think that it's like, to me, I found an easy way to reconcile it. Just given that it's basically bacteria, and that think of it as like an antenna for the Force, right? If you have a bigger antenna, you have an easier way of getting sound waves in and out. And if you have a shorter antenna, you don't. And so to me, the midichlorian count was always about kind of that bacteria having a certain attenuation to the Force that you wouldn't have otherwise, much in the way that in Legends, the Isalamiri could like deflect the Force.
Right.
It was kind of the opposite. So for me, the midichlorians never bothered me that much, but the idea of that being a focus of a trilogy to me seemed a little heavy-handed.
See, I don't mean, I still take, I don't know, I take offense to, I guess, midichlorians, because for me it was about the feel of how everything was, and I didn't mind the creatures in Legends that would, you know, create an anti-force bubble to allow you not to, because that to me wasn't technology, that wasn't a you know, a scientific,
it was a natural foil,
right? But it wasn't a scientific explanation for what was going on. It was just these creatures can stop this other magical force that happens. Now, if they went in to describe how they had some anti-midichlorians in their blood that would, you know, then it would be, okay, now you're getting into that tech side of things that makes it feel less about the story and the nature of things than it does the actual physical science of it.
Okay.
But
all right.
And some people are bothered more by that kind of stuff than others. I mean, if it was something he wanted to tell and that's a story he wanted to do, by all means, let him do his thing. I mean, that's what we want him to do, right? I mean, just because it wasn't the story we wanted, I mean, I've said that before, it's the one that we got, so we're going to enjoy the one we got.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, my opinion on it, and for all the criticisms that I have of the sequel trilogy, and I think my biggest criticism is just simply the disconnected story.
Right.
I think that's really the big thing for me.
And I think that's really the problem. It's not that we didn't get Lucas's vision. I think this could have been a good vision. What we got, we just needed a cohesive vision.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
We didn't have that cohesion.
I think a lot of the story elements were fantastic in the sequel trilogy. I think the characters were great, all that stuff. It was just a very disconnected story.
Yeah.
And
it needed somebody at the wheel of the ship.
And that's what we got. I think that George's vision is pretty cool. I mean, there's different opinions on Darth Maul. I mean, when they first resurrected Maul, if you will, in the Clone Wars, I thought that was really lame. And then he grew into a character that got better, and I liked more. And then his story arc just kind of floundered a little bit, but obviously they would have done something different with that had he been intended truly to be in the sequel trilogy. So great idea. We didn't get it. Sure, we can speculate about it and say, oh, hey, it's a cool idea or it's not. But we have what we have.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah,
okay.
Exactly.
So is there anything else in this book of any interest?
Not that I have seen here. I mean, just the fact that it's coming out in December for us, we can pre-order on Amazon. Retail price is around $200. Amazon has it down to $151.
Oh, is that all?
Yeah,
well,
so.
I mean, it looks like a really good book,
Christmas
though.
gift,
And I think Spencer was talking about in the chat room. He had the first one, and I guess this is another one. And he plans to get it. Apparently, I mean, I'm hearing good things about the book, and it would be a collector's item that a lot of people wouldn't have sitting around.
Right.
And again, it's a coffee table book. It's a larger format book, and 600 pages for a coffee table book is abnormally large.
It's substantial. Yeah.
It's a weapon.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah.
You can defend yourself.
You could take out Palpatine with that thing easy.
No, I don't think anything about taking out Palpatine is easy. That's
All right.
Okay. On to the news here. We do have so last week we had a book released that you guys may have heard about. The Empire Strikes Back from a certain point of view book. Eric was probably really looking forward to this because he loved the first one so much.
So some people may have heard a rumor that I wasn't a big fan of the first one. That rumor might have come directly from my lips emphatically and repeatedly. That being said, I've read 3 so far. Not the first 3 in the book, but kind of jumping around a little bit. And across the board, they've been better. So far, I'm really liking this book. This book so far, at least those 3 stories, are what I wish the first book had been. Though, again, I've only read 3 so far, and there were good stories in the first book. I think overall, I wasn't as thrilled with it. But
I think...
You think? Yeah, no, not so much on this one?
No, I love this one.
Okay.
I think that it's in the same vein the first one was, though. I still don't see how you...
I've only read 3 so far.
Okay. I mean, so I started from the beginning because it does tell the book in the same path as the movie took, right? So you may have a little bit overlapping on some stories, but it kind of goes from front to back. And I've done the first 4 or 5, I think, out of the book so far. And
what you mean is the stories in the book kind of align with the timeline of the film.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
That wasn't clear. Yeah. And I think they're put together very well. I mean, some are better than others, definitely, but it's a cool take on some of the stuff. And some of the ones I like the ones that are more closely tied to what we saw in the movies that you can definitely pick up and say, hey, this is it. Some of them take a little more liberty where they'll be like, this is a character was in the background of whatever scene it was, and then he goes on to a whole different story that has nothing to do with the timeline of the movie. You know what I'm saying?
So here's a summary, an analogy of what I didn't like about the first one and why I like the second one better so far. If I say, you know, I've been working night shift, and so I've had a couple of days off, and I've been kind of sitting around the house moping around because, you know, quarantine, plus nothing's open in the middle of the night, even if there weren't a quarantine. And even my friends online, you know, they're all in bed, and wow, I can't wait to someday have a day job again. Okay, that's not a story. That's me expressing to you some emotions I felt in a moment. That's not a story. There was too much of that in the first book that weren't actually short stories. They were just little vignettes of emotional moments that weren't actually telling a story. There wasn't a theme. There wasn't there was no story or plot or character development or anything that was really interesting to me. In this one, there are, of the three that I read, one was one by Amy Ratcliffe that I really liked. And it was about a reporter, a propaganda reporter at Echo Base on Hoth. And I really liked that because it was telling the story of the character, not just what was going on in their head, but what they were doing. And it had a theme to it. It had a point. And I liked it. And then there was another one that took place that wasn't covering events we saw in the movie, but that time period, just characters we know who were elsewhere. And that one I liked a little bit less, but it still told a story. And there was, I think, a little bit more character development than plot necessarily, both of which can be elements of story. And I liked that. And then another one was about a perspective from a main character that was directly relevant to what we saw in the movies. And it gave additional meaning to an otherwise almost throwaway scene in the movie, other than just something to move the plot forward. And it had meaning to what we've seen over and over again in Empire Strikes Back. So to me, so far, I haven't read much of it. There are a lot of stories in this book. But each of these hit in different ways the things that I felt were missing in so many of the stories from the first one.
Okay. And fair enough. Fair. I mean,
yeah,
you know,
that's fair.
And I'm glad people liked the. I don't want to be dissing the first one. I'm glad people liked it just because I didn't. I want you guys to enjoy it. Okay. I mean, let's keep it positive.
The first one, we wouldn't have gotten the second one.
Right,
so,
right. And that's great.
Yeah, there we go.
Yeah. And again, there were some really killer stories in the first one.
Mm-hmm. Now, one of the reasons why we bring this up, little self-serving reasons, I suppose, you scheduled with some of the authors. Tim, why don't you let us know what we can expect from the bonus episode that we're going to get?
Are we allowed to say who they are yet?
We can. Okay. We can. I don't see any reason necessarily why not to.
Find out when they listen.
That's true. That is true.
And the book's been released anyway.
Yeah, the book's out.
Yes. Yeah, the book is out. So we are going to be interviewing Amy Ratcliffe, Mike Chen, and Jason Fry. I think a lot of people are familiar with Amy and Jason. I don't know that Mike has written anything for Star Wars before. But his story in this is really, really very unique. And the end of it has a pretty nice dovetail into a brief but pivotal scene in the movie.
Yeah.
So,
okay.
Yeah. So definitely,
I haven't gotten to his story yet.
It was good.
Yeah, it's really good. So
it was good.
For folks listening to this, definitely read those stories or listen to those stories. I'm a big fan of hardcover books, but I learned from the first Certain Point of View book, which I did get in hard copy, but then I also got an audiobook. It's fantastic in audiobook.
Yeah.
It's really, really very good.
And we have a cast, a large cast of people in the audio book.
Yeah.
Now, so to be fair, I guess we need to say this too. We did get promotional digital copies to prepare for the interview. I'm still going to buy the audio, buy through Audible, but I'm still going to get the audiobook. And that's probably how I will listen to the rest of the books because the narration is so good.
Yeah.
Yep. No, I have the audiobook and I'm going through it now, and they're fantastic. I will pick up the hard copy book at some point too, because it's a great piece to bring to conventions and in different Comic-Cons and get all the authors to sign it. So I'm still working my way through the first one, getting people to sign that, but it is fantastic.
But the fact that we're all acquiring, like we all got a promo copy of it, and yet we're still going to go and acquire additional copies of it out of our own accord. Yeah, that says something. Yeah. So I think this is a strong recommendation from the three of us. And I'm a little bitter because, I keep missing the Vanessa Marshall interviews. I missed the interview for the Tight Beam that I wanted to be on. Several for the Tight Beam, but the one that I have to interview this guy, couldn't make it. I'm missing this. I was on board for what was going to have been the interview for this and it got rescheduled and I'm missing this one. The next time. So first of all, next time we talk to Vanessa, period, you guys are fired if I'm not part of the call. And then additionally, the next substantial interview we get, I've got dibs. Just saying.
But wait, you just got to do an interview.
No, I didn't.
What a great segue to our next story.
I got to participate in a press conference. Much like when you go to a convention and you sit at a panel at a convention and they take questions from the audience and 800 people line up and they take the first 6 questions. That doesn't mean those hundreds of people didn't interview.
But you were.
I was
there.
Are we talking about that next? I mean, I guess we can.
It is.
No, we have the feedback that. Yeah, that was the next big talking point. But let's do this anyways because it's kind of promotional and ties in and stuff. So you guys probably know on the 17th, which is just in a couple of days, the Lego Holiday Special is being released. And this is another thing we got a promotional screener for. And they did a press conference with Anthony Daniels last week and I got to attend. And it was pretty interesting. It lasted, I think it was maybe about an hour. I don't know. I'd have to double check. And of course, Anthony Daniels, the actor who plays C-3PO in all of the films and also does the voice in various different productions. He had a limited role in the holiday special, but he participated in the press conference. They asked him a lot of questions, like what was your experience like in the first holiday special? And he was talking about, as most of us would expect, he thought it was going to be something different going into it than what it actually was. And he said, and there we are at the end and we're thinking, oh, this is Life Day. This is a celebration of, it's like the Christmas analogy for the Wookiee planet and blah, blah, blah. And he's like, and we're all standing there and dark black robes and Carrie Fisher singing this slow song. And it was like a funeral. And I'm like, what did I get myself into? And somebody asked him, what can you say that was positive about your experience in the first holiday special? I got paid.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. I mean, he was blunt about it. That was good. I mean, you got to give it to Anthony Daniels for that, at least. He calls it like he sees it. And he did have a lot of positive things to say about a lot of different things. The one thing that I took away that was interesting, that was almost newsworthy, was somebody asked him if we can expect to see more of C-3PO in the days to come, blah, blah, blah. And he made a point to specify, I think we could. I mean, not in any theatrical releases, but I think it's safe to say that there'll be more 3PO coming. So what that told me is he at least hasn't been contacted about anything for theatrical releases. And we don't know how far along any of the production or planning is for those anyway. So it may indicate something and it may not. At the very least, it means that they are not far enough along in any theatrical release that would involve him to have contacted him already.
Right.
So, but the special itself, I did get the screener for it, and I can say that it is very good. I would say it's one of the better Lego productions, and I think that's saying a lot because the Lego productions have been pretty good. They're all non-canon. So they're all silly, goofy, lighthearted stuff. And it tackles some kind of darker things in a really, really lighthearted way. And it kind of harkens back to what we had introduced in Rebels with the Void doing the kind of pseudo time travel thing. Mm-hmm. And so we get to hit a lot of different pieces of the Star Wars saga. And I won't get into specifics. I won't give any spoilers beyond just that. And you see that in the trailer anyway. It was good, though. And I think the themes of it were interesting, too. So there were a lot of funny moments. There were a lot of interesting moments. But then if you zoom out a little bit and look at the overall theme and the point of the special, which I think was maybe 45 minutes or so, it was good. I was...
Okay.
It was better than I expected it to be. I was impressed. It exceeded my expectations without a doubt. So
good.
Yeah.
Nice.
So let's get back to this feedback.
Yeah, something to look forward to.
Yeah.
And that comes out in 2 days.
In 2 days, on the 17th, and that'll be on Disney Plus.
Yep. Very good. So, Eric, you mentioned some feedback we have from a listener who's setting us straight on...
Setting you guys straight. I think I was just misinterpreted.
Wow. Wow. Well, then why don't you bring us through this and tell us how we were wrong?
Oh, really? Okay.
Because I don't... Wow.
All right. Well, this is from Willie. He said, I think you guys are missing the sail barge on Boba Fett. That was good.
Well done.
That was good. Like that alone. Good job, man. I can't believe no one is interested in a Boba Fett miniseries or movie. Allow me to present my case. The bulk of the story should take place between Rebels and Empire. We saw a young Boba Fett in Rebels and the older Uber bounty hunter in the Empire, and there's obviously a lot we don't know. Placing the series in the same timeline as The Mandalorian would be a mistake. This is one of the biggest problems that the sequel trilogy suffered from, too close to the original trilogy. They should have said it hundreds of years after Jedi, but that's a topic for another day. How did Boba get his Mandalorian armor? That's an episode or two right there. He obviously didn't get his dad's armor, but that could be a great start to a story. There are touches of this in the Clone Wars, but not a full explanation. There's also much made that Boba is not a Mandalorian. Maybe he tried to be, but was rejected. How did he get to be such a badass? We've had 3 John Wick movies that are all essentially the same, him kicking ass, and we eat it up. There's got to be a good story arc in there somewhere. We've had no story that focused on the villain. I think he means in Star Wars in general. Here's a chance to make him a nuanced character, not just an enigmatic one. He's obviously got a tragic upbringing. Explore the Underworld. We've had glimpses into the Underworld of Star Wars, but that's it. The now canceled 1313 project was supposed to show us that. Here's a great chance to tell us more about the Hutts and the crime syndicates. Obviously, there's the question of escaping the Sarlacc. If Mandalorian doesn't address this, then that's where we start. All the episodes could be flashbacks as Boba is either in the Sarlacc or escaping it. Make Slave One a character, like the Millennium Falcon is in Star Wars and the Razor Crest is to a lesser extent in The Mandalorian. I think you can see that there's a ton of material that you could explore here. It's stunning to me. Stunning, Lou. It's stunning to me
I see that
you guys seem more excited about the Cassian Andor series than Boba Fett. I mean, the idea of a Star Wars spy series is intriguing, but honestly, the only thing there that really interests me is seeing K2SO Alan Tudyk again. I suppose in true outrage culture fashion, I should question your fanhood. So pretend that I did that somewhere in here.
Wow.
So pretend that I did that somewhere in here. Willie.
Willie, first of all, thank you very much for writing us. And your point was well thought out.
And well presented.
And well presented. Yeah, there's some good comedy in there, which we obviously appreciate. And it was also well organized. And you brought up some really good points. That said, I think I still stand on my original thoughts on this. Especially even compared to a Cassian Andor series, that is something that is in basically a different sandbox than a Boba Fett movie. I mean, most of the Boba Fett movie or series would be taking place on Tatooine, which I always appreciate going back to Tatooine. I know Eric differs in that. But a Cassian Andor series is more likely, not saying that the Boba Fett one wouldn't take us other places, but the Cassian Andor series is more likely to take us different places, give us completely different plot line, things that we don't know about that we're not familiar with. If we're comparing the two, I'm definitely much more in favor of that one. Again, I still like Boba Fett, but I'm past it. I'm past it.
I have some very specific comments, but Lou, would you like to go first?
Sure. I'm in the same boat with Tim, I think, actually. I mean, I think that Willie's argument was actually very well laid out and very well thought out. And while I don't disagree with the fact that these are all cool things I'd like to know, my problem with it is more of that we've had this character in the fandom for so long now, and it's like I don't really care about all the backstory, because he's had a place in my head and in my storyline forever. And
yeah, but we've seen inside your head, Lou, and let me tell you, you think that Sarlacc pit's bad? Try escaping this thing.
Oh boy! Yeah. But going along with that is kind of like letting us know how the magic act was done. I mean, I don't need to know the stuff. Part of his mystery is the mystery, right? I mean, we've he's this character that had very few words, and yet everybody's like, Boba Fett. It's like, yeah. I mean, that I don't want to know anymore.
Okay, so
now Eric's gonna make us all look bad. So go ahead.
No, I'm going to keep this objective and fair, and try to remove any personal emotion out of it, and just keep it like fact based. And okay, you guys are both wrong.
Which is crap. We know you're not going to do that.
Yeah, I know.
I tried. So I'm kind of in between the two. The Cassian Andor thing, and Spencer in the chat room says, I've got to agree about the Cassian Andor series. Still surprised that's happening. I think that the Cassian Andor series has merit if it's not about Cassian Andor, if it's about the formation of the rebellion and kind of what the rebellion had to do to get itself positioned to be able to actually do something. So I think both the spy sort of aspect of it, but then also just the uprising, the forming the rebellion, and we've talked before when we've discussed books about how some of those novels about that have been really interesting, and how we kind of wanted to see certain aspects of that. We got to see that in Rebels, and that was always one of the things that people said that was positive about Rebels. And there were many positive things about Rebels, but the fact that we got to see the formation of the rebellion. And I think that if the Cassian Andor series takes that approach, it's going to be wonderful. If it's about Cassian Andor, I don't freaking care. All due respect to Diego Luna, to everybody involved in Rogue One. I loved Rogue One. And it's not that I would mind seeing more of Cassian Andor, and I love Alan Tudyk. I mean, oh my gosh, huge fan. I don't know that that's what we need to see when there are so many other stories that we still have active questions about that still have gone unanswered. So for the Boba Fett series, if it's about the backstory of Boba Fett, like Lou said, and like Tim alluded to, I don't care. I think we're going to see how he got out of the Sarlacc pit in The Mandalorian, and I don't need a longer explanation of that in his own series. And I don't need... We got some of his childhood in the Clone Wars, and I don't need to see more of that. But what we didn't get to see is him actually being a bounty hunter. We didn't get to see him going out on adventures and on hunts and taking on missions and all of this stuff that we assume makes him really cool. Why can't we get that? Like, we got some of it in the comic books. We got some of it in the Legends novels, and we liked it. Some of us did. Mm-hmm. So why can't we get a series that covers that? If it's covering that, I'm good with the series. And I've always been interested in having Boba Fett content. I think a mini series is probably better than an ongoing series. But I think if they're covering that, it's great. If they're going to explore the backstory of the character, then I'm just not all that interested, I guess. And also, Willie, you can pretend that I expressed righteous indignation at your pretending to question my fanhood. I guess that's fair, right?
Sure.
So anyway, that's my thought. But again, I mean, okay. We love getting feedback from people like that because it's that's exactly what we like talking about here anyway. Is do we want this? Do we not want this? Why this was presented really well, and we don't hesitate to cover feedback that disagrees with us. Obviously, in fact, we have a tendency to probably pull that out more often than. All of the fan worship stuff and oh, you guys are so wonderful. I mean, my gosh, my bedroom's wallpapered with that already. I don't need more of that.
Those are all me writing in.
Yeah. And it's the same little paragraph. I just made 300 copies of it and we don't get that much praise. But
well, I mean, the one thing about this, I mean, despite Eric's comments about us being wrong, I think that, there is no right or wrong to all this kind of stuff, right? So there's what I want, there's what Eric wants, there's what Tim wants, there's what Willie wants, and we're all entitled to that, right? And at some point, you accept other people's thoughts on things, and we move ahead. So if we're getting some of the stories we want, I think it's a plus all around.
Totally.
And it's okay for you guys to be wrong.
You keep saying
we still love you.
So let's lightning round through the rest of this news that we have here. There's been confirmation of release date for the next Thrawn book. Tim.
Woohoo! I already have it pre-ordered.
Do you?
Oh, yes, I do.
Very good.
The moment I got that notice, I pre-ordered it.
So we've got a Kindle edition for $14.99. There's a hardcover edition for $28.99.
Audiobook
being
version.
Released on May 4th. Why does that date sound familiar?
I don't know.
May 4th, 4th of May. Anyways.
Cuatro de Mayo. It's a big Latin American.
There you go. Yeah.
Oh, boy.
This is the day before Cinco de Mayo.
So this says on Amazon,
it's a way to drop him from the call.
Book 2 of
probably.
It's book 2 of 2. Was this not a trilogy? Was this one of those things where Amazon only has 2 books, so that they're linking it, and when the third book comes out, it'll be 3 of 3? Or was it always just a duology?
I thought it was supposed to be a trilogy.
I had thought so too. And it could just be that this is Amazon's coding of it because it has 2 pages for this series, and so it's counting it, 1 of 2 and 2 of 2. And then when there's a third one, it'll be 1 of 3, 2 of 3, and 3 of 3. Maybe it's just an Amazon thing.
Yeah, because actually I think they're saying book 2 of 2 because they only have 2 books right now. So yeah, it's a stupid Amazon thing.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure.
But even in the description, it says that this is the second book in the Thrawn Ascendancy trilogy.
Okay.
So
yeah, the chat room is confirming the same thing. So okay.
Yeah, it's a dumb Amazon.
Just wanted
thing.
to make sure. I'm going to be ordering it on Audible.
That we're not distributed by Amazon because they would cancel us for me saying that.
That's true. Actually, according to the terms of service.
Yeah.
Yeah. For those of you wondering why our shows aren't on Audible. Yeah. Though we support Audible.
Censorship.
I'm getting mine on Audible because my bud Mark Thompson's doing the narration on it, and so I'm picking it up. That's my weapon of choice right there is Mark Thompson reading the books. So
exactly. Speaking of books, we have more book news. So the first of the High Republic books coming out is going to be Light of the Jedi by Charles Soule. Mm-hmm. And they've been releasing chapters, I think, 1 a day on StarWars.com.
That many? Wow.
I think the first 8 chapters I heard it was going to be, and I think they're doing 1 a day or 1 every couple days.
You need to catch up.
Yeah, I think they just released the second chapter. Where is the link here? Bring it up, StarWars.com. Please share chapter 2 of the novel. Novel hitting the shelves on January 5th, 2021.
If they just keep going, we won't have to buy the novel. We can just go to StarWars.com.
It's only the first 8 chapters I heard, so no.
Darn.
You can get the first 8 chapters and be done with it. That's good enough for the story.
Hopefully it's better than that. Hopefully I get to chapter 8 and I'm like, where's the freaking book?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So if you go to StarWars.com, you can see how to get those chapters.
And it's available for pre-order on Amazon as well, I think.
More than likely, yes. New Hasbro
Easy for you to
Black Series
say.
figures coming out in June. I know, exactly. These were up for pre-order on Hasbro Pulse, which are sold out already, of course. And let's see here. Of course, we got something else.
This whole sold out as soon as it's announced thing.
Yeah, I don't understand it, especially if they're coming out in June.
I know.
They should simply gauge their demand and they should up production to meet the pre-orders. I don't understand it.
Yeah, I mean, that's part of what a pre-order is, right? I mean, you get the orders in early so you can produce stuff to meet your demands. I mean, when I order stuff for my work, when we order a season ahead, and they say, what are you going to order for this? And I want these, and these. And they go back to the manufacturer with all the orders from all the dealers
10,000.
and say, we need this many of these. It makes sense. Yeah, I don't understand.
I'm a little bit bitter about the Celebration store in that regard too, though. We'll come back to that. But yeah, this pre-order situation, it's like, oh, hey, there's a cool thing you're just telling me about and I can't have it. Then don't tell me.
Yeah, exactly.
I was happier when I didn't think I was missing out on something.
Yep. In this release, though, we're going to get Asajj Ventress, and we're going to get two of the Bad Batch. We're going to get Hunter and Crosshairs.
Okay.
I was really excited to see Asajj. I'm a big fan of hers, and I was bummed that I didn't get to this before it was sold out. I'm pretty selective about the
figures. I shouldn't say we're going to get them because we're not going to get
them. Some people are going to get them.
Right.
They're going to be out. Yeah.
I don't know. I've never been an Asajj fan, but Hunter and Crosshairs, as much as I didn't care for those episodes that much, I think they'd make for cool characters. Or cool figures. I like those.
Definitely. Let's see, a new Lego set. We have a Naval B frigate available.
Yeah, this is the small one, so don't get really excited. It's not like a full size Lego build. It's a really small one, like not even 100 pieces. I don't think so. I don't think it's sold out now.
The fact that we have to think about it that hard, though. Just saying.
I mean, it's a nice little build. It looks nice, but I mean, I would want something more to scale with the rest of the ships.
I still want the Razor Crest.
So.
Yeah, it's 459 pieces.
Yeah, that's not huge.
No.
Still got to get the Razor Crest before it goes up to like $800 on eBay. Holding out for a collector's edition.
Hard to find.
I don't know.
Well, I mean, get it while you can because the ship's looking pretty tattered. So maybe they're going to replace it with
So help me if they do. I will start a change.org petition faster than Tim can blink.
Yeah. Well, no, I don't think you have anything to worry about because they have that whole HasLab thing going on where people are, pre-buying. See, they're doing it right with the HasLab thing. You pre-order that for $350.
No problem.
And they're going to make those for you, and you keep adding on stretch goals. So yeah, whatever. Next up, we have a story that's near and dear to Eric's heart because he really wants to get on a soapbox about the Celebration store. No. First off, though, I mean, it's the Celebration store, so right away you know there's gonna be issues.
Yeah. First issue is I get the email
in person or online.
Right after I get the email that has the pins, the Mandalorian, the skull, and then the Mudhorn. And I'm thinking I'm not gonna drop $800,000 on all these other pins they have, but I want those too. Clicked on it. It's not in the store anywhere. I don't even know how much they cost because I couldn't find the listing in the store.
No, they're still in the store.
Are they? How much are they? And send me a freaking link because the link that was in the email didn't take it to me, or there was a problem with the store and it wasn't listed, and then maybe they fixed it.
So there's a big thing here. The email that you got, the store right now is open for the first week for ticket holders only.
Okay.
And back, I don't know, 2 months ago or something, ticket holders got an email where they could create a password in the system and all that stuff. So that gives you access into that stuff now. If you weren't a ticket holder, then once that week is done, then you have full access to it. So I think that's why you weren't able to see the stuff.
Then shouldn't they not email me the email until...
Presumably, yeah. I mean, I'm not sure why it went out.
You would think,
because then people are going to have exactly that issue. So
yeah, because when I go into the link, it tells me I got to log in, which I can. I can see pricing. And
So how much are they?
$40
Okay, I would do that.
for the Mythosaur and the
They'll be
Mudhorn.
sold out by the time I can log in.
Well, no, I can order up to 3, so I can get you one.
Oh, okay.
Eric.
I'll PayPal you the money.
There's some really cool stuff in here. There's like there's a bounty hunter coin set. Obviously, there's a ton of pins, T-shirts, all that.
Can I get a holographic bounty hunter puck? A bounty puck with a little hologram?
I don't think so. Now, I haven't seen one
that
on there, but there's like pages and pages of stuff in here. It's way better than the release that they did like a month and a half ago.
Yeah, Tim and I were talking about this before we started recording. That first release they had was, oh, now the store's open.
Yeah.
And it was like 12 things, and most of them were like, yeah. And the only thing I really wanted was the pins, and you had to buy a shirt to get the pins. And I'm like, $50? No, I don't think so.
Yeah. Spencer said he had some problems with it too, and he contacted the support, and they were able to help him through it, and he picked up a bunch of pins, so that's good.
They did a cool thing, Bespin Mining Company. Yeah, they kind of created a logo for it, and there's a whole bunch of different merchandise associated with that, which is pretty cool. There's some IG-11 stuff, which I think is fantastic. There's a
patch for IG-11 daycare.
Yes, yeah,
nice.
They have a patch and T-shirts. There's also an IG-11 stainless steel water bottle. So it's just the head of IG-11. It's fantastic.
Oh, that looks good. Yep.
Yeah. Probably my favorite thing out of it is it's the Hoth Invaders hockey jersey. The Hoth Invaders is the name of the team. Yeah. And so, they have their logo, and you got the shoulder patches and all that. It's pretty cool. That's my favorite thing out of it.
Yeah, we need more Hoth merchandise. We really do.
Absolutely.
The pins, Tim and I were talking before we started recording too. The pins, they have a good selection of pins, a lot of pins out there. They don't do it for me this year. The pins aren't as, I guess it's the style.
Every year they do a different variation of the pin style.
And they're unique. They're all cool that way. But these don't really float my boat, I guess. But
I'd only want the Mandalorian ones.
It is cool to have the pins if you're into collecting pins. I do have one of the because I got an email the other day saying that my pre-orders for Celebration merchandise are being shipped. The ones I pre-ordered with my badges. So I'm getting a lanyard
forever ago.
And some other stuff. I'm like, oh, okay.
Well, that's good. That lanyard makes sure you don't lose your badge as you're walking around the house with it.
Exactly. Walking around the house and going from the bathroom to the kitchen. Yeah.
Walk into the bedroom and your wife's like, whoa, let me see your badge first. I don't have it. It must have fallen off. Well, you should have used your lanyard. Yeah.
I'm going to do like Tim does and just put it in my jacket and walk around for 3 days before anybody realizes.
For those of you who missed that story. Yeah.
But yeah, so I mean, there is some cool stuff out there. If you've had registered before, jump in there and get stuff this week before I think Friday opens up to the rest of the world. So cool stuff. And lastly, Deluxe Edition solo soundtrack.
Yes.
Cool.
I think that soundtrack was very underrated.
I think I've actually listened to that soundtrack very much at all.
It's, it's obviously not John Williams.
I do like the Star Wars soundtracks.
It's John Powell. Yep. And there's a lot of John Williams themes in it. And I think people are too quick to dismiss anything Star Wars related that's not John Williams. And now they're learning through The Mandalorian that maybe they shouldn't just do that. This soundtrack doesn't maybe stand out as much as something like Empire Strikes Back or Phantom Menace, but it's a good soundtrack. And this is going to be digital download only. And it's got 15 additional tracks. So it's like a double length album.
Cool.
I mean, it's probably just about the length of the movie, I would guess. I don't know. I'd have to.
Yeah, it's just a 35 tracks.
Yeah, I mean, that's a substantial soundtrack. So.
Yeah.
And especially if you can get it through a service you already subscribe to, like Apple Music or YouTube Music or Amazon Music Unlimited or, whatever is Spotify, Pandora. If you've got a service that has access to it, it doesn't even cost you anything then because you're already paying for the subscription. Check it out.
Yeah.
Let us know what you think.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Okay, well, guys, that brings us to the end of the episode. We're right about an hour, so we are pretty much right on time. That's pretty
except
awesome.
the whole doing shorter episodes thing. We're more not on time than we usually are.
Well, no, usually we're over.
Yeah, we're usually over.
Now we're kind of right on time, so we're still a bit over for our shorter shows. But yeah. So, guys, thanks for being here. We did. After a couple weeks of having nothing, this was a good episode to have.
Yeah.
So, chat room, thanks for being here with us. It's always good to have a live chat room with us. Keep us on the straight and narrow.
The dead ones are just boring, and they tend to smell after a while. They smell like tauntauns.
They do. Yeah. No, let's not go there. There was a story in spec point of view book about Tauntaun.
Oh, really? I'm going to go read that. All right.
Tauntaun Musk. Yeah.
Nice.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah, that's funny.
Oh, that was funny. Okay, I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
Okay, guys, we're going to close the blast doors. Thanks for being here. Thanks for watching us on YouTube. If you've seen this after the fact, please click below and like and subscribe to us, and check out our other shows as well, so you can hear more of our thoughtful banter.
That was good. They might even believe that. That's good.
They might. Well, if they've heard this, they won't believe that, but maybe. So,
I think Lily gave us the most thoughtful thing.
Yeah, exactly. He did. He did. Well, guys, thanks for listening again, and we'll come back at you guys in about a week.